begin.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to welcome and thank you all for joining this meeting of the Finance Committee of the University of Louisville Athletic Association Board of Directors. The chair of this committee, Andrew Grubb, is on but is having some technical difficulties in this hybrid forum. So I will chair the meeting unless there are any objections. Thank you. If you're participating virtually, please remember to mute your microphone when you're not speaking. I will now call roll of the committee. Neely Bendapudi here. Eric Burson.
Present.
Eric?
Yeah. Here.
Great. Sabrina Collins.
Here.
Dan Durbin.
Here.
Jasmine Ferrier.
Here.
Lori Gonzalez.
Present.
Andrew Grubb is here. Dennis Heischman. Dennis?
Dennis dropped the call.
Okay. Sam Rector.
Here.
See you. Karen Turner.
Here.
And Krista Wallace Boaz.
Present.
Great.
Thank you. For those of you sitting around the table, just remember to please pull the microphone to you so that we can hear you over the loudspeaker as well as in Teams. Thank you.
And having determined a quorum present, I call the meeting to order. You may have noticed that one of our new members of this committee is Dr. Lori Gonzalez. I will officially recognize her at the full board meeting, but I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Lori to her first Finance and Budget Committee. Lori has hit the ground running. She is no stranger to the Commonwealth, and I am just so pleased to have her on the team, as I know all of you will be as you interact with her. You'll hear more from her at the full board meeting. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Jake Beamer and Ryan McDaniels from my team for the incredible work they've been doing with all of our board meetings. Jake Beamer is in his element in producing and directing all of these board meetings. So I want to make sure that we give him a special thank you for arranging these meetings. Takes a lot, as you know. Our first item of business is the approval of our minutes of the January 15, 2021 meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries and the minutes stand approved. Our next item of business is the approval of the lacrosse and field hockey video and scoreboard replacement. Jeff, would you please brief the committee?
Thank you, Neely. Good morning, everyone. This morning, we're seeking board authorization to spend up to $1.5 million to install 2 new video scoreboards at the field hockey and lacrosse fields. The existing boards were installed back in 2008.
Jeff?
Yes.
Jeff, this is Neely. Let me double check that everyone on the video is able to hear Jeff okay, or please pull the microphone closer. Everybody's giving thumbs up. They can hear you just fine. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Like I said, we're seeking board authorization to spend up to $1.5 million to replace 2 existing boards, video scoreboards at field hockey and lacrosse. The boards date back to 2008, and they've run their useful life, and actually we're honestly out of parts right now for the boards. So this has been identified as a high priority project by our internal capital working group, as well as our populace study. Our timeline for this is we'd like to get this RFP out on the street in April and possibly award in May, and have the boards installed before we start the field hockey season in August. In terms of funding, we're going to LED is really cheap right now, so we're expected to be well under the 1.5, and we're anticipating using a combination of savings in our debt service as well as some of the 1.3 million we liquidated back out of our reserve fund in January. So a combination of those funds will be used to replace them. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. May I have a motion to approve the recommendation to replace the video and scoreboards as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Our next item of business is the approval of debt restructuring and working capital financing. Jeff, would you please brief us on this?
Yes, thanks, Neely. As I'll talk about later, we're facing some financial challenges in our operating budget this year. So back in February, we issued an RFP for some bank debt with the help of Dan Durbin and Dub Newell, who are big helps on this. So today we're seeking authorization to execute loan documents with Republic Bank on 2 credit facilities. The first is a refinance of 3 existing issues, which funded the ACC Network Building, Cardinal Stadium seat coating, and the construction of Lynn Stadium, as well as the expansion of the Ulmer and Patterson stadiums. The total amount of that issue is about $11 million. The second facility is a $20 million working capital note required to bridge the gap between our revenues and operating expenses this year. This amount will cover the current year operating loss and provide a cushion as we return to our normal operations over the next 2 years. Both those issues have a 10-year term, interest-only payments for the first 2 years. There's an option to extend in year 11 for an additional 10 years. The rate on both is fixed at 293 basis points for the first 10 years. Again, with the assistance of Dan, Dub, and Robert Baird and Company, the RP committee selected Republic as the most attractive offer. It's the most flexible in terms of helping us get through this cash flow issue over this year and next year. And the committee felt this was our best option among several really good options we had. So therefore, we're seeking approval to execute these loan documents with Republic Bank. Are there any questions?
This is Jim Rogers. I'm not on the committee, but can I ask a question?
Sure.
The floating constant maturity treasury, we're going to go from year 11 to 20. Is that the 1-year auction?
That's the 10-year option. It goes up to 150 basis. The margin's 150 basis points in the second 10-year option.
Yeah,
if I understand your question.
No, I'm sorry. The word floating constant, is that off the Treasury 1-year auction?
I think it was the 10-year, if I'm not mistaken. We just got the documents yesterday, and we're reviewing them now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Just let me know on a phone call if that's the 1-year or the 10-year, because that would make a big difference. And secondly, will this affect anything, a relationship with PNC?
No, I can answer that, Jim, too, that we obviously spoke to PNC in the beginning as we were scoping out what our needs were going to be. They had an opportunity to discuss that directly with us. Due to the outcome of those discussions, we moved to the Baird process where they had an opportunity to rebid.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Vince, if I may, it was also it was an open bid process, number one. And there's also a couple of things that I'd also like to add is that we're not pledging academic assets to these loans. That an academic, no streams of academic revenue are pledged to this, number one. And number two, is part of the benefit of the refinancing is we have some covenants on some of this older debt that are tying up our cash that the refinancing actually kind of helps relieve those restrictive covenants.
Yeah, I think to Dan's point, we wanted to make sure we got a deal that was an athletic, a ULAA issuance and not a ULAA/university issuance, and we've been able to accomplish that here, or looking to accomplish that here. The second point that Dan made was we had a liquidity covenant on one of the debt instruments that was 10 million of liquidity. Yet that particular note was down, I believe, in the $3 million range. So it was structured in an odd way that liquidity covenant was significantly greater than the actual balance, principal balance itself. It didn't trail down with it over time. Any additional questions?
This is Steve. I have just one. What's your plan to use the working capital?
Yes, Steve, the interim was for any net operating losses that we have this year. The other is as you're probably aware, we've drawn down on our liquidity quite a bit during this year to fund some of the losses, and it was to put what's remainder of that is to put it into dry powder on our balance sheet.
Okay, so you don't expect to actually use all of this right away?
No, based upon the update that Jeff's going to provide here in a second, no, we do not.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Jeff. Before we begin voting, just wanted you to know that Dennis Heischman has asked to recuse himself from this vote because his bank was one of the bidders on the proposal and on the RFP, and I would like to acknowledge that here. So with that, may I have a motion to approve the recommendation and resolution to award the debt restructuring and working capital financing to Republic Bank and Trust Company as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstention? The motion carries. And now our last item, a very important item, is an update on our ULAA financials. Jeff, would you please?
Mary, can you hear me now? This is Jake.
Yes, Jake.
Sorry, we lost audio for a minute, so we need to go back and do the little bit about the recusal, as well as that motion in second. I'm sorry, but we didn't hear that in the room.
I see. No problem. We'll do that. We have to, as you heard, Jake, they lost audio. We're going to approve the motion again for the record. And I'd also like to have on the record that Dennis Heischman, who sits on this committee, has asked to be recused on the vote because his company responded to our RFP on this matter. So thank you, Dennis. And with that, once again, could we have a motion to approve the recommendation and resolution to award the debt restructuring and the working capital financing to Republic Bank and Trust Company as presented?
So moved.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Our last and very important item is an update on ULAA financials. Jeff, would you brief us, please?
Yes, thank you. Jake, next slide. This slide is a P&L. These next two slides are P&L. This first one gives you an overview of our revenue and transfers to date through the third quarter. In that third column there, it's our actual year to date on the revenues. Our total revenues are at $78.4 million. Of that amount, about 43.1 is from our actual operating budget. If you compare this back to December, our actual revenues have increased from about 55 million. So we made some progress in this quarter. Over year comparison, if you look at that second to last column, we're still down about 38 million on our operating revenue. And overall, we're about 53 million down on all revenues. And I just want to point out the items in yellow. There was an entry that came in after I did the original statement, so those are the 2 items that changed. It was basically a adjustment to due from the university. So as you can see, we're making some progress on our revenue. We still have probably about 25 to 28 million left outstanding, most of that being from the ACC, which we'll get that in June. Any questions on the revenue? If not, we'll turn to the expense. This is a picture of all of our expenses and transfers through the third quarter. Looking at that third column, you can see our total expenses are about 88.3 million to date, compared to about 124 million last year. You can see in that second to last column that we're down about 36 million on the expense side from last year through the same period. And we've also made some progress from that December report. At December, we were down about 33 million. Now we're about 36 million. So you can see we continue to watch our expenses. With all of them being down, with the exception of aid, we still are making great progress on our expense mitigation plan, which I will go through here shortly. Going back to that third column, you can see the item in yellow. Our overall net loss right now is about 9.9 million. We've kept this down again due to our mitigation plan and controlling the items that we can control. However, there are several items that we can't control, and there's still some things outstanding that could impact that. But honestly, our goal is to try to get that overall loss down as close to 5 million as we can. Somebody have any questions on the expenses? Okay, the next slide, again, is an overview of our COVID expenses through the third quarter. As you can see, through date, the total for the fiscal year is about a little over $1 million. Over to date, since this all occurred back in March, we're about 1.1 million, with the 2 largest items being our testing and supplies and equipment. Much of this expense was unavoidable, but it was managed well by our staff. And we hope that these expenses will start to tail off now with the virus starting to subside a little bit. So hopefully we can keep this number down to about 1.1 as we go forward. Any questions on the COVID update? If not, I'll look at our current financial outlook, and what I'd like to do is compare it quarter by quarter, and hopefully you can read this. It's starting to get kind of small, but on the right there is a table basically showing where we were projecting at each quarter, so that the first column is at September quarter, the middle column is December 31st, and then the third column is where we are now. And again, these are our projections. So you should be familiar with this for the most part, but that top part is how we got from our original $109 million estimate for this year down to 95.1. So we cut about 14 million before the year started. And just looking at the March columns, that first big section in the middle shows what we were projecting, what items were going to negatively impact our revenue. So you can see back in September, we were anticipating about a $37 million loss in our operating revenues. And as of the end of March, we're now down to about 26 million. So that's been really encouraging to see our revenue projection come down, the loss actually come down. And on the expense side, again, we have the mitigation plan, which we implemented we planned it back in April, and we've been implementing it throughout the first 9 months, and it will continue over the next 3 months. And we had the plan originally was 18 million, but back in December, when we realized our revenues were coming in stronger than anticipated, we cut that expense target back. Again, one of those things that we cut back was the staff furloughs, which we were really happy to take that off of our plan. So as you can see right now through March, we're anticipating our operating deficit to be about 14 or 15 million. And then to the left is just a graphical representation of the table to the right. Again, it shows you the total shortfall in revenue, the numbers across the top with 25 million projected now, and then our plans to cover that shortfall in the different boxes. Does anybody have any questions on our forecast? If not, I'll touch on our mitigation strategy. You should be familiar with this. This is a high-level overview of our different phases. So we had our first phase prior to the fiscal year. Now we have 3 phases during the year. Each phase, the first 2 phases lined up with our 2 quarters, and this phase 4, which we're in now, basically is the last 6 months of the year. And again, we established those 3 levers that we could pull. We had our operating, financial aid, and salaries and benefits. So in this table, you can see what our goals were in each of those levers for each of the phases. So to date, overall, we've reallocated about 11.1 million back to our contingency out of our operating budgets. So of the 11.4 million goal, we're already at 11.1, and we still have 2.5 months left of the year to realize more savings. And I can't emphasize enough. I mean, our staff's really pitched in this year. It's been a real challenge. We've made a lot of sacrifices, but you can see that we've stuck to this plan, and people have just really pitched in to help us meet that goal. And I'll get into a little more detail on this next phase in the following slides. But does anybody have any questions on the overview? Okay, if not, this is the detail. Nothing's changed on this first. This is the first phases 2 and 3, the detail, and nothing's really changed since our December meeting. As you can see, through the first 6 months, we had exceeded our target of 4.8, so we were already in good shape heading into this last phase. Jake, on the next slide. And this is our current phase 4, which we're in now, just a detailed view. Again, we've reallocated about 4.5 million in this phase, and our goal is about 6.6. So we're well on our way here. One thing that we still have is, if you remember, we liquidated some endowments to fund some of our financial aid expenses, and that's not reflected in here yet, and that's going to be over $1 million, and that'll post to that financial aid column. So all in, I feel we're going to meet this target easily, and just continue to watch our expenses. I think we're in a really good spot to end this year. I mean, I never thought I'd say losing this kind of money is a positive, but I think we're in a really good position right now, especially with this new working capital that we're going to infuse into our balance sheet. So, are there any questions on our mitigation plan?
Yes, Jeff, this is Sam Richter. I see the numbers, and I understand them pretty well, but what does that mean in head count, people?
In head count, Sam, this year we're down about 50 from last year. That's about the total, but we had a plan to furlough staff this year, which we took off the table. So hopefully our head count's pretty stable right now.
Thank you.
That's the one lever we really held off on touching, because the staff are one of our most, if not our most important assets. So we really wanted to hold on that as long as we could. And I think we did an excellent job in that area. Okay, if there's no further questions, I've just got a summary sheet here on the last page. Revenue forecast continues to improve. As I said, there's probably about 25 million just on our operating revenue still to post. ACC is the biggest, it will post in June. It's up about 4 million from December. Through the first 3 quarters, our operating budget reductions have been about 11.1 compared to our target of 11.5, so we're in really good shape there. As we reduce these budgets, we're moving it back to our contingency to offset the revenue shortfalls, and we had a balance of about 10.3 in our contingency at the end of March. We're still on target to mitigate the 21 operating deficit down to 15 million. I'd like to go a little less, but I think 15 million is probably a reasonable goal. So we're just going to continue in these last months to try to hit that target. Unrestricted cash position was in a deficit of 173,000 through the end of March, which I'm fairly satisfied with. It could have been a lot worse, but again, we're controlling our expenses and keeping our eye on things we can control. And I think that's really helped keep that cash deficit from getting any lower or higher. But it probably will increase over the next 2 months until we do get that last ACC payment, because we still have about $3 million a month in payroll, and then we have all of our teams traveling right now. So we're really going to have a lot of expenses in this last couple of months of the fiscal year. And then the last thing is the working capital debt. Again, will be used to support the cash flow until we return to normal operations. So, any questions on the finances? Yeah.
Are your revenue projections for, say, like the fall going to be based off of full or partial stadiums and arenas?
Well, we've already realized the ticket revenue for this year. For next year, I can talk about next year's budget, which we're pretty close to finalizing our first draft. We're about 80% capacity right now in terms of where we were in 20. in terms of the revenue targets on the season tickets. So we're trying to be really conservative next year as we try to claw out of this issue we have this year. But right now, we took our FY20, which was our last good year, and we took 80% of the attendance figures, and that's what we currently have on our revenue. In terms of this year, all the ticket revenue is pretty much set. We still have some movement between some refunds, but for the most part, all that in the current year is pretty much set to work what you're seeing here.
Just to clarify one thing on that, Jeff had mentioned 80% of capacity. It's not 80% of the capacity, 80% of what our prior attendance had been in ticket sales. So what we would have sold in fiscal year 19, we're looking at that as far as fiscal year 21. We'll learn about capacity from the governor as the summer moves on.
Thank you for clarifying.
Jeff, I've got a question. In the past, the ACC payments have sort of lagged, and we've had some cash flow issues from time to time. And I'm just wondering, does the conference recognize?
Sam, you muted yourself at the end. Would you state the question again?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah. I don't know where I left off, but anyway, the cash flow question. The conference, ACC, has historically lagged in their payments to us, and we have cash flow issues from time to time, and now it's even going to be worse with the revenue downturn that we've had. And my question is, does the conference recognize that its member schools are having that problem, and have they tried to accelerate their method or timing of their payments?
I think, Sam, they do. We meet probably once every other month, and we're all aware. They know what our issues are, and they actually have their own issues too. So we do talk frequently, and we should get that last payment in June, and then we'll have a true up. Once they get through their operating budget, they usually have some savings, and then they do a true up in September. But we do fully anticipate to get that last check in June.
They get, saying one thing too, is they're receiving a fair amount of proceeds right now from the bowl game. They have to true up all the bowl games, the college football playoff, the ACC men's basketball tournament, and then shortly here to come, the NCAA basketball tournament as well. So they have they get a slug of revenue that comes in, and then that's when, to Jeff's point, we get a pretty good view of that. Probably well in the next week or two is exactly where they're forecasting the year-end payments to be, and then one last true-up for that comes later in the fall. But we will receive a nice size payment here in short order.
Thank you.
Hey, Vince, I have a question. This is Steve.
Yes, Steve.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
How do we compare with the other ACC schools and the other athletic departments across the country that you know of, that you're aware? Is our finance position has obviously been weakened by the pandemic? How do we compare against the other schools, as far as you can tell us?
Extremely well. I would put us at the top. I'm going to brag from what Jeff is presented on. You're reading about schools in the Big Ten that are in the $30 to $50 million deficit. In the ACC, I specifically know of probably half of the schools and know where we stand. I think NC State's done a nice job trying to mitigate theirs down in the single-digit million deficit. I would tell you they're also in receipt of close to $6.5–7 million of student athletic fee, where ours is sub $1 million. So there are some apples and oranges inside those numbers based upon university subsidies or athletic fee subsidies from students. Ours is probably one of the lowest, if not the lowest in the conference. So that's why I say I think we've done a really good job in mitigating where we are to get this down, hopefully below overall, as Jeff mentioned. We're still trying to get it down to $5 million overall, with the operating being less than 15, but overall being in the $5 million range. Keeping in mind that we started this year with an unknown, thinking it could be, I think Dan knows, we presented the worst case, we're in the 50+ million based on where we are today. We were fortunate to have some attendance, but pretty aggressive cost cutting.
Then I would say that your team deserves some accolades, and you probably have one of the best teams in the country. Thank you.
Don't disagree. Thank you. And they know that too. They've done a great job.
Thank you, Steve, for that. I was just going to say I'm really proud of the hard work that Jeff and Vince and the team have done, and the collaboration with Dan Durbin at the university. And again, as you all heard, every effort to make sure that spending on athletics does not really impact or have any negative effect on spending on academics at all. So I'm really grateful for the incredible work that Vince and the team have put in. The information that was presented so far requires no action, was for informational purposes only. So if there are no other questions, we have no other business to come before the committee. So I would like to entertain a motion for adjourning the meeting, please. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. The meeting is adjourned. Everybody, if you're joining on virtually as I am, please stand by for a few minutes while they figure out the audio, and then we will begin the ULAA meeting. Thank you very much. We have some people in person and some of us joining virtually. First, before we begin, if you're participating virtually or if you're in the room, please remember to mute your microphone when you're not speaking. With that, I will now call the roll. Tom Andrews.
Here.
Ben Barbary.
Here.
Neely Bendapudi here. Larry Benz.
Here.
Eric Burson.
Present.
Sheldon Bond.
Present.
Jerry Bradley.
Present.
Ryan Bridgman.
Here.
Sabrina Collins.
Here.
Jeremy Clark. Dan Durbin.
Present.
Jasmine Feria.
Here.
Lori Gonzalez.
Present.
Andrew Grubb. Don Heineken.
Here.
Dennis Heichman. Steve Jones.
Present.
Tom Meeker.
Here.
Sharon Moore.
Here.
Eugene Mueller.
Here.
Whitney Nash.
Present.
Sam Rector.
Here.
Jim Rogers.
Here.
Shannon Rickett.
Here.
Karen Turner. Here. Krista Wallace Boaz.
Here.
Mark Watkins. And Veron Wright.
Right here.
Great. Having determined a quorum present, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Before we begin, I'd like to welcome our newest board member, Dr. Lori Gonzalez. Lori joins us as our Executive Vice President and Provost, which is the Chief Academic Officer, as you all know. And those of you who've served, like Tom Meeker, might remember that a provost in the Army is the jailer. Here she is not. The provost is the Chief Academic Officer, and this is about day 16 on the job for her, and she's making a tremendous difference. It's always wonderful to be able to put your team together, as you know. I'd like you to join me in welcoming Lori. And Lori, would you maybe introduce yourself briefly?
So I'm very happy to be here. I'm very thrilled to be at the University of Louisville. I'm a native of Rockcastle County in Kentucky. I was born in Mount Vernon. I've been out of the state for about a decade, and it's very good to be back home, and it's really great to be a Cardinal. So thank you.
Welcome, Lori. I know that she looks forward, and I look forward to more interactions with each and every one of you that is so kind to serve on this board. I'm also delighted to present to you another member of my team. This is our new General Counsel and Vice President for Legal Affairs. Both of these are national searches, as you know, and that is Angela Curry. Angela, again, has already started to make such a tremendous difference for us. Angela, would you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. I am a native of Lexington, Kentucky, although I've been telling people that I have received my cardinal vaccine. I am immune from any wildcat variant coming from the central part of the state. It's truly a pleasure to be here with you, and I'm looking forward to serving.
Thank you so very much. One other announcement before we begin. It will take effect formally at our board meeting next week, but I have promoted Dan Durbin to be Executive Vice President. So I will now effectively have 3 Executive Vice Presidents. We have several Vice Presidents, as you know, who do an extraordinary job, from Tom Miller to Vince Tyre, but our 3 Executive Vice Presidents will be Lori Gonzalez as the Chief Academic Officer, Kevin Gardner as our Chief Officer for Research, and Dan Durbin, our CFO, also as Executive Vice President. So I hope you'll all Well, let's wait. Next week, everybody's enthused on the board, but we will formally confirm that. It passed not the governance committee, but I wanted to share that with you. With that, our first item of business is the approval of the consent agenda. Please feel free to call out if you would like to discuss any item further. Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Our next item is the report of the faculty athletics representative. Krista, please begin.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning. It is just wonderful to be here with those of you in the room and those of you on Teams. And it occurred to me that this gives us an extraordinary opportunity to feel what our student athletes have felt this year in their hybrid courses. So I just want to applaud the tech team behind me that made this possible and all of our tech support across campus that really allowed us to keep learning and keep working this year. So thank you very much. I'm completing, I think, my freshman year as FAR, and it's been just an incredible year despite the challenges with COVID-19. It's just been a great meeting everyone and working with everyone, and I've spent a lot of time listening and learning and reading and meeting regularly and as needed with compliance and CAP and the SWA, Student Support Services, and also our student athlete academic advisors. I participated in the ACC Fall and Winter meeting, so this can just give you a little snapshot of my year. I review waivers regularly, monitor athletic grade changes, work and sign off with certification of eligibility, review and complete applications for our ACC postgraduate scholarships, and then coming up the NCAA postgraduate scholarships. And we're getting ready to review the 2021 time management plans with both the students and the coaches. During COVID-19, we've found ways to continue to connect with our student athletes with letters and emails to students, a meeting with the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, and then I was honored to be able to do a spotlight with one of our outstanding students, Allie Bidding, just so the students could get to know me a little bit better. And then CAPS also had a year. This is our committee on academic performance. We've had a year of listening and learning a lot about the NIL, the 2.0 rule, stacking policy, and also read-only access for Blackboard have been some of the highlights of our year. So, these are things that I think I know that I knew about our student athletes, but after this year, I can say that I know this for certain, that it runs very deep, that our students are resilient, they are disciplined, they are passionate, they are dedicated, and every day they give their best and strive for excellence. So I'm proud of each and every one of our students, and it's been an amazing year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Krista. I think you can all see the real passion that she has for serving our student athletes and making sure that they have the best experience. Are there any questions for Krista? If not, no action is necessary. That was for informational purposes only. Our next item is the report of the athletic director. Before he begins, I want to tell you once again how hard Vince and the whole team have worked to bring transparency to the process. And you've already seen, those of you who participated in the finance and budget meeting, how Vince and Jeff and the whole team have worked hard to be good stewards of our public trust. So with that, Vince, please begin.
Thank you, Neely. I'll start on the heels of what Krista just updated on, and our student athletes continue to do exceptionally well in the classroom, and I'll touch on some of that as we go through some sport reviews, but it amazes me how resilient they've been as well as all the tutors and advisors, and Marvin Mitchell and his team and the Thornton Academic Center for Excellence, how they've adapted to the situation and excelled in it, to be honest. So you're going to hear a lot about academic achievement as this semester concludes here in the next month, and some really high-ranking honors across many of our student athletes. And I'll touch a little bit on that today, but as we move into the summer, it's exciting to think about what's happening on that front. Jeff covered the finances. I think you can get a pretty good view of where we are. Honestly, I think we've done a terrific job. There's been a lot of challenges, a lot of tough decisions. You say no quite a bit this year, more than I probably have cumulatively in the years before. We are running with a leaner staff. We've had to prioritize our initiatives, and that has been around the student athlete experience. That's the area where we said we don't want to get into areas where we touch upon the student athlete experience, and when we have to, we want to get really creative to make sure they don't miss a beat. And I think we've been able to accomplish that from the feedback from their head coaches and sports staff, but from the student athletes themselves. With that being said, the numbers speak for themselves as we begin to wrap up our last quarter of the fiscal year. The budget process, we've made great strides in. Frankly, I think we got in such a good rhythm going into last fiscal year financially in terms of where we were managing the athletic department that it's now showing up again in the budget process. Very efficient, very effective, very good decisions being made. Not an easy process, but we're at a point now with our key assumptions around ticket sales and attendance in the fall, where we have a balanced budget to look at. We'll be presenting that in a more formal state in May and go through a budget workshop with everyone. But again, I think we're in a great spot. If things improve any more than what Jeff alluded to and our assumptions around ticket revenue, it'll be an even better year. And I think with what we just approved on the debt structure and having interest free for a couple of years on our debt, also adds to that financial performance. So looking forward to another great financial year in fiscal year 22. On the fundraising side of things, the momentum's continued. Typically we have two, maybe at a best year, we might have had 3 7-figure gifts. Last year we had 7. We got a couple already. This year we got a couple verbals at this point. So fundraising has done extremely well as we think about building up additional dollars towards some of the deferred capital projects, deferred maintenance we have, as well as growth capital projects that we have. Our capital projects team's been getting together every other week. Really thoughtful decisions incorporating what we've invested with Populous. As Jeff mentioned earlier, we'll replace the video boards at the lacrosse and field hockey stadiums, which are in dire need. As most know, we announced the dorm in conjunction with campus on Floyd Street across from the Keeper Center. Our fundraising there, our obligation in athletics of $3.5 million is already fulfilled. We've been able to raise those funds as well. From there, there'll be a pedway from that dorm that will connect to the Keeper Center. As most know, the Keeper Center is in need of some renovations. As part of the Populous project, we're now refining that project and, frankly, just working the dollars down and smoothing it out to make sure we still, provide that project proper due. But it's getting a lot of attention today, and Josh Hurd, our Deputy Athletic Director, is leading that cause for us. We have a couple other projects that have been discussed a bit that'll get greater recognition in the coming weeks, and that is around the baseball stadium. We've discussed an indoor facility. We already have our key corporate sponsor for that project, but we need to work through construction costs and others, so there's more to come on that. It'll be in front of you in the future, as well as renovating the entrance to Jim Patterson Stadium, which Jim Patterson has been working hand in hand with that from a financial standpoint as well as a design standpoint. And again, that'll be one that'll be forthcoming. We have lesser projects that we're working on. The women's tennis locker room in the Bass Rudd is in desperate need. We've had a donation in that area, which a couple donations in that area, so we'll be able to improve that facility for our women's tennis team, which is needed. And then we'll see some investments around the football stadium in this fall, particularly around a fan zone that we had discussed a couple of years ago. And we'll bring back some renderings of that at a future meeting. We've had all facets of our department working on this and with outside third parties to put something together to make the fan experience what it should be and improve upon it, because we know attendance is a challenge at live sporting events, and we want a fan experience when they do return to be even better than it was when they were here the last time. Moving away from capital projects, community service, as you've heard, has been it's a focus of mine. It's a focus of this athletic department. We want our student athletes to have a well-rounded experience at Louisville, not just athletically and academically, but also from the community service aspect of it. As I mentioned before, we had been #1 in the NCAA last year. We're sitting at #1 today. So we're getting challenged for that position, but we're hopeful to have another banner for that to hang in the Thornton Academic Center as the year gets closed out. So big kudos to Alyssa Murphy and her team. They've done a terrific job. Monica Negron, who's now moving on to another position inside the university. Kayla Lloyd is helping out there, so a lot happening. In the near term, our commissioner of the ACC, Jim Phillips, was appointed earlier in the year and will be making a formal visit to campus next Friday. So we've got a full agenda for him while he's on campus to discuss what's happening at the University of Louisville. We'll have a number of things we'll go through with him, but I'm excited to have him. Frankly, in my 3.5+ years here, we've not had a commissioner visit, so I'm excited to have Jim here and walk him through what's happening at the Ville. As noted publicly, the football stadium has now become a vaccine site, a significant one, and will be over the coming weeks. We'll continue to market that opportunity for the community to come to the football stadium and get vaccinated. I think they get the Pfizer vaccine going on at this time, and hopefully it stays as active in weeks 3, 4, 5, 6 as it will be in the first couple weeks. On the sport front, I'll quickly run through this, and it's hard to do this in short order, so I'm trying to talk fast because we have so many teams doing well. We're really performing extremely well. Baseball right now ranked #5. Got a great record. They're at the top of the ACC. Henry Davis is up for the Golden Spikes Award, which is the top player in college baseball, and we have bid to host the regional and super regional here at Jim Patterson Stadium later in May. On the basketball front, Fred Hina, our longtime trainer, is retiring, so we're teary-eyed, yet we're excited for him. And I mention that just because he's a fixture in the athletic department, not just in the basketball program. So we wish Fred the best. A lot of activity in basketball because everyone's reading about a transfer portal, which is legislation in the NCAA around student athletes be able to transfer from one school to another and be immediately eligible. You can do that once, and we're seeing that done a lot. Of about the 4,000 plus Division I players, there's been in the 1,300 that have been in the portal, so you're going to see rosters move like the NBA this year and in years to come. Our roster will change a bit next year, and David Johnson, our local product, is declared for the NBA moving forward. And we're still in the process of recruiting and hiring 2 assistant coaches, which one is imminent in our ability to announce that, and the second one we continue to recruit on. Women's basketball, another Elite 8 run. Thought we had Stanford. It was tough to watch the second half, particularly the fourth quarter for everyone. But another outstanding job by Coach Walls. He was ACC Coach of the Year. Dana Evans last night got drafted 13th in the NBA. She picked up about every award possible and was ACC Player of the Year, was up for National Player of the Year in many fronts. But that was our 4th consecutive ACC regular season title. Mikasa Robinson, ACC Defensive Player of the Year. A couple freshmen on the All-ACC freshman team, Olivia Cochran and Haley Van Lith. Stephanie Norman, our longtime assistant, is the National Assistant Coach of the Year. In football, we feel good about what Scott has done. We had a very difficult year with COVID, as well publicized, but we had an outstanding recruiting class, and in the spring practice, it's already showing that we're going to have a lift coming into the fall. We've announced some big news, and that we've scheduled Georgia home and home, and years 2026 and 27 will be followed by Texas A&M in 2028-29. So we're giving our fans terrific treats on the home side of things. Obviously, we have Notre Dame again in 23 and then 26, so the schedule's going to be a challenge, but outstanding experience for our fans. And then we've got 3 players up for the NFL draft here at the end of the month, and Tutu Atwell, Des Fitzpatrick, and Javion Hawkins. Our women's volleyball team, which I'll be off to Omaha this weekend. We play on Sunday afternoon. We're in the Sweet 16. We had a very tough match yesterday against San Diego and won, so we look forward to that. Danny Busman Kelly, our head coach, was the ACC Coach of the Year. We've had a few of these, as you can tell, but also the AVCA East Region Coach of the Year. So we had a lot of awards on this team. ACC Freshman of the Year, Anna DeBeer, who's a local product from Assumption High School. Tori Dilfer, ACC Setter of the Year. Amaya Tillman, ACC Defensive Player of the Year. We didn't get to our ranking as number 11 in the tournament without that, but just fantastic performance, and hopefully their season continues past Sunday. Swim and dive, Arthur Abiero, yet another outstanding year. The NCAA, the men finished 5th, the women 13th, and the ACC, we did outstanding as well in performance. The men won the ACC first time ever, which is a tough accomplishment. Everybody knows how difficult and challenging the ACC is, and the women finished 3rd. So we had some ACC champions. We also had national champion Nick Albiero, along with his dad, who was Coach of the Year. He was Swimmer of the Year, but also was a national champion, won the 200 butterfly, and then we had a 200 medley team that won the NCAA as well. So they had a terrific season on the women's side as well. Very young team, so we're excited about that. Let's see, and then the Olympic trials are to come. So we're going to have a lot of those, including 5 former student athletes to be at the Olympic trials in Omaha, which we hope to be there, not just for volleyball and for swimming, but for baseball when we go to the College World Series in June. Right, Dan McDonald? I know you're listening in. Field hockey right now is ranked number 4 in the country. We won the ACC regular season in the fall. They're continuing to play in the spring. Academically, probably one of our top teams. 3.809, which I know Krista can appreciate that. We have so many academic heroes on this field hockey team. I think we had 12 national field hockey coaches, honors of distinction, 25 student athletes that had national academic, was on the national academic squad. 11 of our women had 4.0 GPAs. So this one goes on. Meshi, who's our top player, was a recipient of an ACC postgraduate scholarship award. We had 4 female student athletes that actually earned ACC postgraduate scholarship awards, as I think about hers, because I had to rate the references. Softball, same thing. They're competing right now, trying to position themselves from the ACC championship. We're hosting it here in Louisville, so come on out. We're going to be prepared to host the ACC softball tournament here in Louisville, which is outstanding. Academic awards, again, 19 of the 25 student athletes be named the athletic director's honor roll. So this is and it's led by our senior Celine Funky, who's also president of our Student Athlete Advisory Committee, our SAC group. Celine's a cumulative 4.0, even while she's been earning her MBA, and been helpful with Celine and her internship, and now getting her placed full-time with Baird up in Milwaukee when she graduates here with her MBA once their season is complete. Men's and women's cross country and track, the indoor track and field, again, academically outstanding. We've had some individual performers. McKinley Forrest won the NCAA as well individually in the throw. She's a throws champion, had a new school record. She's a 3-time All-American. She's the ACC Female Scholar Athlete of the Year, which is pretty awesome. And the ACC Women's Indoor Field Performer of the Year. So we've had second team with Haley, Aaliyah Welter, second team as well, All-American in the pole vault. I could go on there on the track and cross country. Women's lacrosse, Coach Scott Teeter's got us back in the top 20. That program was challenged a few years ago. He's come in and done a terrific job each year building upon that. We actually hosted 2 games in our football stadium that was nationally televised on the ACC network, which was awesome, a great exposure for our program and our university. Again, a great academic team. Team GPA is 3.65. We had 35 Red and Scholar athletes, which means they got about 3.25. Community services is one of our leaders too. They performed 670 community service hours. Men's soccer 4-2 in the spring. They just beat number 1 Clemson. John Michael's got a great recruiting class coming in as they're rebuilding. Women's soccer, same thing, large recruiting class coming in. And Amina Ekic, who is she was the first women's U of L player drafted in the NWSL draft. She was the 5th overall pick, and we're fortunate she was drafted by our own racing city, Louisville. So she'll be playing here in town as she did last night for them. Men's and women's golf, both men ranked 27th, getting better as they always do at the end of the year. They're both men's and women in the ACC tournaments coming up. Women are performing today. John Murphy, one of our players, is on the men's side is going to play for the Walker Cup team against the U.S. They'll be competing for the Great Britain Ireland team, so we're excited for John. Women's team is ranked 48th right now, and again, closing in. Lauren Hartledge continues to be a star and will be in the future. She was played in a top amateur tournament at Augusta National right before the Masters tournament. Unfortunately, she lost in a playoff after 36 holes, but is leading the charge right now in the ACC as we speak. Rowing, again, another sport doing well. We actually had an individual I want to point out there. Bertie Maxwell was named a Muhammad Ali Institute Scholar. The Muhammad Ali Scholar Program provides Cardinal students with a unique international learning experience to explore justice issues in a different culture, political, social, economic context. And she's the first student athlete to win the award in 6 years. So we're excited about Bertie. Men's tennis, men's and women's tennis both getting set for the ACC tournament down in Georgia. I could go through some of these where the individuals are ranked, but I know I'm giving you a lot. You can tell I'm excited about all this. Our Spirit teams, we won 2 national championships. The all-girl cheer and small co-ed cheer were national champions. And of those teams to have a 3.0 or better on the AD, the athletic director honor roll, we had 52 in cheer and 32 in dance achieved that award. So that, again, academically doing extremely well. And the last thing I touch on the sports side of it is esports, which I know Neely sort of assigned to Matt Banker, myself, Neely, probably 2 years ago. We spent a lot of time and effort how to develop esports on campus, even though it's not an NCAA program. I think we've got it to a point now where we're probably at a point to hand it back off to Dean Martis and Student Affairs, and hopefully I think Matt would stay attached to that. But we've co-hosted collaborative game nights on campus with the Office of Diversity and Equity. This is a great sport related to diversity and equity. There's, we talk about the gaming and implicit bias and all the things we do and make it fun for them. We beat Kentucky in the battle for the Bluegrass, which was pretty neat. Also Murray State, Eastern, Northern Kentucky, all those. And I think we're cultivating our first founding sponsors for the program in L&N and Commonwealth Credit Union. They're going to support the esports over a multi-sport or multi-year program, which we've just put together for them. So that's a very fast wrap up of 23 sports. And the reason I say that is, keep in mind with what happened with COVID in the fall, they all participated at once in the spring. Our staff has been taxed. Not a lot of vacation days for a while here over the last 15 months or 14 months, but particularly facilities and marketing and how to manage all these games. We have multiple sports going on the weekends, and it's taxing even for the broadcast center on what's happening there, because ESPN has relied on us due to their own cutbacks in staffing to produce these sporting events. So a lot of activity. Pay attention, because you're going to see more good news on that front. The last thing I'm going to cover today, and Jake, if I could have you throw this up on the screen. Neely and I discussed about athletics, giving you an update on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I gave an update to the CODRA general body in January. Athletics was picked first to show where we are and what we're doing on the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. We've been on this for 3 years. So I would tell you this, when it came to social justice issues with our student athletes, I would dare say things went pretty smooth, because we were already out in front of it with our staff and with others, and we certainly have learned a great deal more. You can't say we had it down to a pat, but over that, we spent a year working on our goals and values and how we're going to do things inside this athletic department. So it's not an uncomfortable conversation for me or others to talk with our staff and our student athletes about race, gender, transgender, whatever the topics are, because we've been open about this for the last few years, particularly the last 2 years. So with that, Jake, if you could flip forward just to the department. Well, Marvin Mitchell, you can see, is our Senior Associate AD for Academic Services and Diversity, and leads the charge inside the ACC with the core group, as well as on campus in CODRA. And then we have a Diversity, Equity, Inclusion committee of 6, which Marvin's a part of that too. Next page. I won't read through all these, but just to point out, when we came up with our core beliefs 3 years ago, the one I will point you to is "We win together." And these words are intentional. They were then. We've operated by them. We celebrate diversity, equity, and inclusion as essential cornerstones of a successful team through trust and respect. We value each other's ideas, backgrounds, and contributions that drive organizational success for our athletic department and university. We spend a lot of time talking about empathy and how we understand why we are the way we are and where we came from, and that gets into how we handle conflict management in the department as well. Next page. I'm going to take you through some of the department initiatives in each areas, whether it be staff, student athletes, community. We'll talk about some demographics inside our employee base and coaching base, and then just some moving forward. So next page. The DEI group, as far as the department goes, we have a diversity, equity, inclusion group that was established. There's 6 senior leaders, or 5, and then Christia Worthy, who joins us on that. We have 3 women, 3 men, 4 white, non-Hispanic white, and 2 African Americans on the committee. This group helps establish the agenda for our athletic department externally and internally, and meets on a regular basis to go through this. We're meeting every week. We're at every other week. You can see other initiatives. Former men's basketball player Donovan Mitchell, we worked with Adidas to develop the Shoe for Change, and those proceeds go back to the academic side of campus to help on scholarships and on underrepresented minorities and other initiatives. I know Jasmine's nodding her head. She's well aware and been involved in this from the start. The Cardinals SOAR, strategically organized against racism, is 15 middle managers inside the department, predominantly minority, but they're 15 middle managers who bubble things up to the DEI group, as well as take on initiatives themselves in the community. They've been doing this for some time now. We do student athlete town halls that they set up and go through. We bring in outside speakers, authors, experts, and inequalities and justice and so forth, or lack thereof. Educational support sessions for the student athletes and coaches. We do that. We have partnership with the Kent School of Social Work for mental health support with Dr. Shanice Miller. That's been incredibly valuable. We've partnered with the campus over and over. You'll hear this a lot. We do listen and learns, which are hour-long sessions, and the attendance is outstanding. We do those every couple weeks. Christia Worthy sets those up. We all attend. I'm on all those, and we learn a great deal from a variety of people. Student athlete social justice t-shirts. We are pretty wide open with our student athletes and what they want to do and how they express themselves, but we educate them on how they should express themselves and what they can do too. As I told the basketball team when I met with them before their march, you want to be an NBA first rounder, you listen to somebody teach you how to shoot, your confidence, nutrition, how to do all those things. Yet when it comes to social issues, you want to run out there and do it on your own, just seems inconsistent. We're going to provide you those additional people that teach you to quote unquote shoot free throws in social justice and make you an NBA first rounder in social issues and how to handle that. So those types of education have gone well, and I'm fortunate I get to lead many of those initiatives. Weekly resources, I won't go through all these. We've updated our website, gocars.com. The next page, Jake, is on student athlete initiatives. We have student athletes that are also appointed to the COJA group on campus, and that's roughly about 100 minorities on campus that represent the Committee on Diversity and Racial Equality. The student athlete organizations we have, SCORE, Student Athletes of Color, Combining Opportunity and Responsibility for Excellence. McKinley Forrest is our All-American, and track is very active in this group as well. Iko Jones in volleyball. We've got great representatives in SCORE. Life, Louisville International Family Enrichment Program, because it's not just related to African Americans. We have other groups that we represent in various programs, and you can see Los Cardinales, which Monica Negron created and with our student athletes, and it's more of our Hispanic Latino student athletes, which we also have done independent listen and learns for them. Voter registration drive, we did that on campus where men's basketball was there, SCORE, others, and encouraging people to vote, how to register on campus. We did a campus walk for social justice by men's basketball, gained national notoriety. Again, before that, we talked about how to handle that, particularly in a COVID environment, and be safe for those that are attending as well as themselves. education for our SAC, which is our leadership group, the Student Activity Advisory Council, which is 60 strong. We've got an executive committee that I mentioned, Celine Funke leads that. She comes to me on a regular basis with a variety of issues and presents the student athlete's voice. They're terrific exchanges. She's really a bright and great future leader. Community engagement, we do that through community service. Mental health support, we've upped our game, and Dr. Pat Ivey, who's our Associate AD Health and Performance, and I have worked with Norton Healthcare to improve our support, and Jeff knows we budget for additional support next year with two more resources in that area for mental health. Staff initiatives, Black Coaches and Staff Employee Resource Group. I work with the Black Coaches Association of Football to help, well, Shadon Brown's no longer with us, but Brian Brown, but we try to foster their career and what they knew to become better leaders and become head coaches. We have book clubs. We had two different groups in the book club. So you want to talk about race or how to be an anti-racist, we'll provide the books, go through it, come back and talk about it. We do movies. We come back and do downloads after you watch the movie. McClendon Minority Leadership Initiative. We have 3 McClendon Scholarship winners that we've put in our program. We fund them. Coach Mack has funded one of them. We've had Randy Bufford as assistant. We've had others. We've done it on our operating budget. Adidas has helped in this area as well, but we have 3. We originally going to have 1. We loved it so much. We actually had such great candidates. We have 3. Diversity and Equity Education Workshop, which is more on the next page. I mentioned many of these others. Leadership Development Institute. We have a professional development program in athletics. We put together again 3 years ago. You have to apply. About 15 leaders are into that. We're going to make them future leaders. And then you can see DEI is a part of your exit interview. The next page, hiring recruitment practices. We're training. And we've actually shared what we're doing in athletics with campus, particularly when it comes to how we use a diversity advocate in the screening and hiring process. We provide guides, material for them and tools to train them. We share our jobs when they're available on MOA, which is Minority Opportunities and Athletic Association nationally. It's a national group. And then other postings where we make sure we get a broad base of candidates in our pool. Next one, across the athletics industry, the ACC has its own core group, Commission on Racial Equity. I will tell you that they've adopted about 80% of what we've done here is now part of the ACC, and Mary McElroy, who leads that, is really promoted Louisville and what we've done. Thank you to Christia Worthy and Marvin Mitchell, who serve on that. This week happens to be ACC Unity Week, so there's a number of activations going on related to racial equity this week. Lead One data, we try to look at what's going on in the NCAA and in the industry to adopt that and compare ourselves. We stack rank to make sure we're doing all the right things, and we're holding ourselves accountable is probably the last comment there. Next page is some demographics. Our senior administration, these are senior, I know the heading's missed for some reason, but this is our senior administration. We have 13, we have 3 female, 10 male in our senior leadership group. Amy Calabrese, our SWA, Amy Shoemaker, Lottie Stockwell, all 3 of those I've been fortunate enough to hire into our senior group, and this will expand with females in the future. As well, and then on the racial breakout, you've got 2 Black and 11 non-Hispanic white. Pat Ivey joined us as one of the 2 minorities just about 2 years ago, and is our Associate AD of Health and Performance. The next page is our coaching. Here we go, coaching demographics, and this is we have 63 in our coaching pool. You can see the breakout of female and male. Obviously, sports like football have a lot of male coaches in there, more than you would on some of the other Olympic sports. I would also tell you we've got an initiatives that came up through our Leadership Development Institute around how to grow more female coaches. 2 years ago, we did a study and looked at what was happening, and there's more male coaches in women's sports, and we've talked about fostering that with Justine Sowery, our field hockey coach, as well as Karen Ferguson Days, our women's soccer coach. On the racial ethnicity breakout on the right, you can see we have 7 Black coaches, 2 Hispanic, 54 non-Hispanic white out of our pool of 63, 11.1% is black in that pool. Next page, in our staff, you can see there's 194 staff that are non-coaching positions. We're 61% male, 39% female. And then on the race side, you can see we're around 11% black, 86% white. Our student population, I believe, is around 9%, and our student athlete population is about 22% black, which is on the next page, Jake. So this is the 2019 numbers we're looking at here, but you can see the breakout. Male, female, is pretty much straight down the middle. That's Title IX. You're going to have that anyways when we look at our numbers and we do audits of ourselves on that. And then on race on the right, you can see we have other, maybe Asian, maybe other nationalities, but 138, 156 black, and 400 in the non-Hispanic white. So 57% or 58% is white in our student athletes, with 22% African American. Moving forward, the next slide. Enhancing our culture. I think we talked about participation in studies. We're looking at ourselves. We just launched a program in January at the College of Education and Human Development. We are doing org vitals, checks on ourselves. We do quick surveys. Every employee gets an email. They're very easy to answer. I click on them. You can go through, kind of tell how you're doing that day. We ask about a variety of things. It could be related to DEI. It could be related to how your manager treats you, or whatever it might be. We're always checking on our health and wellness inside the department, and whether we're doing things and looking for signs of things to improve upon. And we'll continue to do that, and be happy to share some of those results at a later date. This next bullet point, focus on our goal as a department. Intentional is the word that we've been using from day one when we put these goals and beliefs together a couple of years ago, as an intentional effort. How are we going to show our intentional effort? I'm giving you a dissertation here to show you we've been doing it and we'll continue to. We feel like it's growing and getting better every year. We're continuing to collaborate with campus, local and national constituents. We reach out, we bring in outside national experts to assist us, but we've really relied on campus. We got plenty of expertise in our faculty and staff here, and we call upon them on a regular basis to assist in many areas. That's been happening, as you all know. When I first got here, the first thing it did in creating the Ethical Leadership Excellence program in the College of Business was to rely on Professor Ryan Quinn and Dean Meridian to do that. We do that in every aspect of our efforts here. The creative pipeline for sport administrators. We have now, if I showed you our org chart today, we feel like this is a great opportunity for us, particularly when it comes to our diversity initiatives. We've brought more people in sport administration. If they want to be future leaders and they want to be athletic directors down the road, we've brought in more. And it's not women over women's sports, it's men over women's sports, women over men's sports. We've kind of mixed up the sports and reported through Josh Hurd, our deputy athletic director, as well as Amy Calabrese, our senior women administrator. So they have men, women reporting to them, as well as sports, male, female. But I think what we've done in bringing in others into that process is, my takeaway from this is, and this is my closing really on this part of it, is it shows they truly feel there's an opportunity in this athletic department to get one of those positions and to be promoted in these positions, no matter of race and gender. And I think that's probably the most rewarding thing that I see happening in our department that I feel good about. The last page is just, we always talk about we rise as one. This is a comment I used, a quote that I used back in April of 2020 when COVID came along and we were sorting through our changes. And it says, there are no extraordinary people in this world, only extraordinary challenges. That ordinary people rise to meet, but we do not rise to a challenge alone, we do it together. And this was our kind of moniker back in April of last year when we said we got to make some tough challenges and we're going to rise as one. And I feel like what you're hearing today in all facets of the athletic department, whether it be academics, whether it be our finances, whether it be our initiatives around how we treat our staff and our student athletes and their experience, is we rise as one. So that's a long update. I promise there'll be a quarter of that size in the future.
Thank you, Vince. I do want to make sure that you send the bragging points about all of the sports to our board members. I did think it was important for you to see how deeply committed Vince has been to the issue of DEI And as you heard, this has been 3 years in the making. But I want to give time. Does anyone have questions on Vince, what he just presented? No action is required, just informational. Any questions at all? We'll send you any information and feel free to reach out at any point. Next up is the report of the chair. And so I keep this brief for you. Probably the most relevant to all of this is I'm humbled and honored to let you know that I was elected to be vice chair of the ACC. The chair is Vince Price of Duke, and he's been a wonderful mentor in this process. And the way it works is Ken Severud of Syracuse was chair, Vince was vice chair. So in 2 years, I would expect to be chairing the ACC. It's an interesting opportunity to learn more. And you know me, I am competitive. And so I hope to learn as much as I can and bring that back to this group. I would also like to have a presentation for you on esports at one of these. Very thankful to Vince and to Matt Banker, who has great passion around this, Michael Martis, and Dr. Lori Gonzalez. So we'll bring that back to you. And with that, maybe a last concluding comment from me is, please spread the word. We have the vaccinations available at Cardinal Stadium. From the time you show up, we have 28 lanes to when you get your shot is 10 minutes. That's at most. So please do spread the word. The governor has issued a challenge that if we can get to 2.5 million Kentuckians who are vaccinated, that restrictions on gatherings of up to 1,000 will be lifted. And so we want to be part of that solution, because I can tell you that our students, young people, as you can imagine, and businesses that want to be able to be open and interact, this would be a great way to support that effort. And I too am happy to answer any questions you may have. All right. Having no other business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Great. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody, very much for joining us. And go Cards, as always. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Goodbye.